So it's a common opinion that topology takes a lot of time to learn, and it takes a lot of practice, and it takes consistency, and I would say even patience. And while all that is true, that doesn't mean that you still cannot optimize your practice to get better results much sooner. And it only takes a long time to learn when the practice is either too consuming or too confusing or just takes too long. And additionally, there's also maybe a good chance that you're practicing actually the wrong approach here. And when I say the wrong approach, here's what I mean: that most practices begin with overly complex objects from the start, because in reality, you're not really practicing complexity. You're not really practicing how to model complex objects. What you're practicing actually is workflow clarity. And that is the goal here, because once you're clear on which steps to take, you can then create anything you want, and then no object is going to be too complex for you to do. So if you're wondering how now to improve your workflow or why your practice isn't working, is because, well, most people that I've seen practice like this. So they spend 3 hours modeling something complex, they get lost or they get stuck halfway through that process. So in the end, they sort of feel frustrated, confused, and just overwhelmed by the results, or overwhelmed by the rules that they need to implement at the same time. And yeah, then just kind of start again tomorrow to do something else, or just repeat the same cycle. So what happens here then is that by the time you're done, then it's going to be very hard to know what exactly in your workflow has improved, because this is obviously not a successful practice. And if it takes you 6 hours to see whatever your approach is working, then you cannot have only one attempt per day if you're lucky. And that again just means that it will probably take you months to learn something that can be maybe learned in days even, or let's say in weeks in some cases. So here's another important thing. So when you're practicing on complex models or complex projects in general, you cannot really tell which rule you broke or where the problem actually started, because the mesh looks wrong, but you don't really maybe know where, or is it really the edge fault that caused this, or is it the density, or is it the support loops, or is it maybe all of them at once? And if you're kind of like wondering, so what's now the difference between my workflow and professional workflow, is that what makes a professional work actually look effortless is that ability to balance the edge flow, to balance support loops and density all at the same time. And to balance it all kind of like at the same time, you still need to know where edge flow, support loops, and density are actually serving your design the best, or kind of like where they are most effective at serving your design. And without this foundational understanding, what is happening is that you're only becoming more tool dependent, or even later AI dependent, to make structural decisions for you. So they take on all the roles of, let's say, decision making. They take the role of art director instead of you actually being intentional with your design, your decision. So as an art director here, you are the one who need to know and understand what exactly you're looking at, because you are the one who actually needs to choose the most optimal and most efficient result, or the most efficient route for any project that you're working on. All right, so let's now talk about the practice cycle that works, because so far we covered what actually then is not working, and then based on that, we're just going to need to flip this around. So your workflow here needs to be more efficient. So that is going to be the goal. And to get your workflow to become more efficient, you need to practice faster, and you need to focus purely on improvement. So that needs to be your goal number one. So first of all, to make any practice efficient, you need shorter practice cycles. And to make the shorter practice cycle even more efficient, the practice should actually focus only on that fundamental aspects. And now here's what I mean. If you're playing a game, let's say like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, doesn't matter, any game that has, let's say, parry mechanics in it, and you're not really learning here to parry, you are training your timing and your senses for proper execution. So if you do it well, the outcome is, well, you can parry. And if you do it enough times, then the outcome becomes that, yeah, you can parry anything. So even bosses become so like effortless. So here's the difference, and here's the difference how to actually learn this, because learning to parry, let's say with low level enemies, gives you a shorter cycle. Learning to parry with boss level enemy gives you a longer cycle. So that means that with shorter cycles, you can repeat often and get better sooner, while with bosses you have maybe 1 or 2 attempts before you can actually try again. So any technical practice such as topology itself is going to work exactly in the same way. So what you want here is actually those quick and immediate results. So shorten that practice cycle. So when you break this down, you're not really learning edge flow patterns or redirection, or you're not really memorizing edge flow patterns or redirections. What you're really doing here is training your eye, training your senses, and building muscle memory to make, let's say, quick decisions or on-spot decisions. And if you do it right, again, you're going to create anything you want faster and just with more confidence. And that is what you actually want. Small compounding wins that are quick, leading to fast and optimized and in the end efficient workflows, because you do not really want to revisit the same tutorials 6 months in the future, because if you do, you're probably doing it wrong. Because the goal here is to make your workflow effortless so that you can actually focus on the design itself and creative aspects and not really worry about technical restrictions that much. Because here's another example. What you see here in the video is actually a project that it's built exactly on the framework that I'm presenting here. And this project does not have any redirections, and it's just simply following natural edge flow and using density to control the form. So it's just, again, basic fundamentals, and I'm just using the basic patterns or the basic structure to advance the form. I'm not really worrying too much about where to redirect what or what it's going to be, let's say, my next technical restriction. So I'm just kind of balancing everything to the form and using the most optimal and most efficient workflow to get me there as soon as possible. So here's now the practice. So even though if it sounds simple, that is actually the goal, because as we mentioned before, your goal is actually to keep the practice simple and shorten the practice cycle. So over the next 4 days, you're just going to practice one skill at a time. So one skill every single day. So it's not going to be a complex object. It's not going to be a complex model, not even a full project. It's going to be only simple forms where you can actually see the results immediately. And that is the key: quick and immediate, and most importantly, correct results. So that is the goal of the practice. So the thing is, if you felt stuck for a while, so if you've stuck here in Topology, let's say months or even years, just try this exercise for 4 or 5 days, and you will see that your decision making will improve rapidly. And if you want to go deeper with visual examples, so like step-by-step demonstrations and guided exercises, let's say for each day, I created a small 4 or 5 days mini course that covers everything in detail. So if you want, just check the link below. All right, so now I'm going to leave this rest of the video narration free, but I'm going to give tips for every single day, what exactly you should kind of like focus on. And that is going to be the entirety of the exercise. You're going to see that it's going to be extremely simple, but after 4 or 5 days, you are going to see major improvement. And finally, thank you very much for watching. If you have any other questions or if you would like to add anything to the topic, feel free to use the comment section below. And thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to see you next time.